We don't want anybody in the middle there. You have to be at the back. Okay, yes. After this, we go on.
Well, they're telling me.
We are arranging.
Okay. Because all of us are.
Yes. So we are arranging it. They're coming. Okay, so we're starting now. Where's Wase? Where's Wase? No, please. Where's Wase? You are Wase.
Very nice, and this is words about my impressions, and then very fast, and thank you. The ministers that have hosted me, and to the FAMSEC in particular, who organized such a wonderful visit, and to NEPC today. It's been a fantastic visit, and it's ended on a very high note. The whole objective was to see how the WTO can work to support Nigeria's economy. What can we do to support entrepreneurship, investment, so that to trade, so that people can trade more? And you would have seen that I kept harping on the issue that Nigeria has to transition from an oil and gas economy to producing in other non-oil sectors. And so the idea that we need to look at how we can add value to our products, improve our services, look for areas where we'll create jobs because we have a large youth population, so we can trade more. You cannot trade more if you don't produce more. You also can't trade more if you don't produce quality products. So the whole objective was to try to see how we can be supportive. And today we interacted just now this afternoon with women entrepreneurs directly. And the range of products I saw is amazing. Actually, it made me frustrated because I was saying we have so many products out of agriculture. And the quality of our packaging has really improved thanks to the work of the NEPC and the WTO and She Trades, the ITC. We've also been giving technical assistance, but here they've been working with the NEPC to upgrade quality. So I saw a range of products from the shea butter I've talked about to oils from sesame seed to date sugar, which I wasn't familiar with before, which can substitute for artificial sugar, to fashion items, to bags that have markedly improved in quality. So it's fantastic, and that has given me hope and optimism. Now we have to ask ourselves why. Why haven't we been able to scale up the production of these items and export more? And how are we going, more importantly, what is it that is standing in the way, and what do we need to do for the future? So those are the questions, whether it's NAFDAC certification that we have to work on, bureaucracy in the face of exports, access to credit, and so on, quality enhancement, all these. These are areas I hope that we can work with the NEPC with the ministry on and with the entrepreneurs directly. So that's why I'm excited. There's a lot of potential, and the WTO, the International Trade Center with the She Trades, will be working with entrepreneurs directly. Of course, we'll be working with government on other policy issues, which I've already talked about. So I'm finding that we can end on a high note because we actually have the ability to do something. Services, IT, I met a lot of women who are offering their advisory services in IT. I met a woman doing outsourcing. She's employing 1,200 or 400 people that she started 8 years ago. So there are a lot of things happening in the economy that should give our young people hope. What we need to look at now is how do we scale this up and how do we get exports outside the oil sector. Thank you. Questions, and then I will...
They already have numbers. Number one.
This is something that did not complete during the round, but there are some specific mandates. As you know, that developed and developing countries do not see eye to eye. That's why there are development around negotiations never were completed. So they're still hanging. But there are some specific mandates on agriculture that come with it, where we think we could make progress, and maybe even at the ministerial conference to have some kind of outcome. On public stock holding for food security, countries, developing countries want to have the ability to be able to have these reserves in case they have difficulties feeding their population. They can buy grains or whatever products during times of plenty and store them and be able to sell them later. But there are countries who are concerned about whether these are being subsidized, whether they are sold later on the open market, thereby undermining the ability of the free market to function. So there's potential to come to agreement on the public stock holding for food security issues. So we could deal with that. There's also a possibility to deal with the humanitarian exception to restricting the World Food Program from buying food freely for humanitarian purposes. That's also being discussed. And so far, almost every country has agreed, except for 2. So we are going to work on it. So what I'm trying to say is some of the mandates out of Doha, there's also cotton. That will take some doing, some time to see an outcome. But these 2 things, the World Food Program waiver, so that they're exempted from any restrictions on purchasing foods for humanitarian purposes, and the PSH, I think we could do something, and that comes out of Doha. On the power problem, what I was talking about is not so much how we're going to use electric cars, although PAMSEC says that they've started working with producers on that, on manufacturers, trying them in campuses, buses. The point I was making, really, is not so much about electricity, but about the fact that as other countries move to ban the use of fossil fuels and to move to the use of electric cars, we will have no market for our oil and gas. That's what I'm talking about. So that's the concern. It's not concern about whether we can use electric cars. It's concern about what will we do when other countries all use electric cars and they ban petrol. So what I was saying is that, look, Nigeria must start thinking of a transition, a just transition. So since Africa and Nigeria, we don't emit most of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, we can ask countries that, look, we're interested in helping on climate change, but could we have a reasonable period of time within which we could transit from the use of fossil fuels? So in the meantime, we could use them domestically, but we really have to move to renewables because there'll be no demand for our products. And we ourselves, wanting to contribute to this issue of mitigating carbon emissions, will also move towards, using products that are low in carbon emissions, and electric cars are part of that. So that's where the electric cars come in. But my main concern is really with transition period. They need to plan for that, to think about that. Is it going to be 2 decades, 3 decades, before which we now need to start moving to other sectors of the economy, which is why I'm excited, because we have to think, how will we earn our foreign exchange? What will we produce and export? What will create jobs? And that's why issues like this exhibition by NEPC and the ministry, where we see so many women entrepreneurs, SMEs, producing quality products, if I may say so. It wasn't always like that, but what I saw today told me we are well on our way. And credit, give praise where praise is due. These women are doing fantastic things. The question for us now and for WTO is, how can we are helping already with the She Trades initiative and from the International Trade Center. But the issue we have to grapple with, how do we scale up this production, maintain quality, and open up export markets? And we'll be happy to work with NEPC and with the entrepreneurs on that. The third issue was on facilitating journalists to come to the public forum, which holds in September. Who asked that? Okay, so we will look into it. This is my 3rd week on the job, by the way, for people to know. I did 2 weeks and then decided to come to Nigeria. So I have to look into it. Mrs. Wase Musonge, who is in charge of Africa, is there. Please give her your card. She will talk to the people who organize the public forum to make sure that some of our journalists can participate in September. And is MC12 going to hold? Yes. The General Council just agreed. MC12 is the Ministerial Conference, number 12, which the Marrakesh Agreement mandates that ministers of trade must meet at least once every 2 years to take decisions on trade issues worldwide. And that's why we have to prepare so well, so that when we get there, there'll be no disagreements, and we'll be able to get some outcomes. So you asked about the outcomes. One, we want to get an agreement on how trade can contribute to the solutions for COVID-19. For instance, many countries have export restrictions and prohibitions, which impede the value chain for making therapeutics, diagnostics, and vaccines. We had 91 countries with export restrictions. I think some of you remember in the beginning, buying personal protective equipment, buying all these medical supplies was very hard. That's because countries put restrictions and prohibitions. So 91 countries had them. They are now down to 59 members. And we are working to lower it so that the supply chain can work well and freely, and we can manufacture those products. So that's one outcome on COVID. What will trade contribute? What will trade also contribute to improving the economies in the world? What are we going to do so as to help jumpstart economic growth and help bring the world out of the recession? So that's another area we are looking to have an agreement. Fisheries subsidies negotiations that have been going on for 20 years. I've said 20 years is enough. If we want to have an outcome that works for people, including our artisanal fishermen, we are trying to negotiate rules that will help them develop and help with the sustainability of our fisheries in the oceans, so they are not overfished. So we'll have a long period of access. Then these we have to conclude so that we'll have an outcome that benefits you. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the dispute settlement system, which has been paralyzed. The WTO is a rules-making organization. And the place where the rules can be arbitrated, it's the only place in the world where one member can bring a dispute against another member. In the past, countries used to go to war over trade. And then they created that mechanism. It's the only place in the world. And now it's been paralyzed for some time because some members did not agree with the way it was functioning. For example, the United States. And they have a point on some of the issues they've raised. So the point now is, can we reform and restructure the place. Can we get an agreement on how to go about it before MC12 so that the world will once more have a dispute settlement system that works? And we also have other things, trying to fast track the rulemaking for supporting micro, medium, and small enterprises and women in trade, and then trade and climate change. We need to see how trade can contribute more to lowering carbon emissions. And the chair of the Committee on Trade and Environment at the WTO, Ambassador Chad Blackman, is here with me today. So he's overseeing that process of how we get to some agreement on rules. So let me stop it there. Those are some of the areas we'll be looking at. Now, the lady from NTA asked about the issue of packaging and quality. Yes, I was trying to say that we have the potential to export many things, but that poor packaging is a barrier. That's what I was trying to, let me see her face. I was saying poor packaging is a barrier. That's what, if we don't have good packaging, our products are not attractive. So I was saying we should work on the quality of packaging. And for many of the products, the producers were telling me that the packaging costs 3 or 4 times more than what is being packaged. So that's an issue. It's very costly, but we have to do it. Because if you want to export to other markets, they will not buy something that looks very shoddy. If it's cosmetics, are you ladies going to buy? If it looks like a how-for-do product. So it has to be well done. It has to be well packaged. But what I saw today now, many of the products, the packaging quality has gone up beyond what I saw 4 or 5 years ago. So it means we can do it with a little more work. We can do it. And then more markets will open to us. That's what I was trying to say. So you are right. You got the gist of what I was saying. How can rich and poor countries be? Trust Nancy to ask very hard questions. How can rich and poor countries be treated fairly? And the issue of the green room. Well, that's a very clever question, very important. The whole point is that the WTO presents a forum for multilateral negotiations where everybody is round the table to agree on what rules should govern trade in particular areas and sectors. That's what's good about the WTO, that rich and poor countries are around and they should negotiate to agree. But what has been happening is that of late, those multilateral negotiations have not been successful and have been taking very long, like the fisheries. The WTO has not concluded a successful multilateral for quite some time. So the fishery subsidies, if we get it, will be a good example. And that's how rich and poor countries can both have a level playing field. The WTO's rules govern the multilateral trading system in such a way it's a level playing field, it's transparent, and it's fair. So that is supposed to help both rich and poor. So we need to move now because rich and poor countries have some disagreements with each other each time on these negotiations. And the idea is to move them more towards each other so that poor countries in particular with the asymmetry of power can benefit. Now, the green room. I haven't used the green room yet, so don't accuse me of taking anyone there. I know that in the past they said some rich countries were taken to the Ambassador Blackman. Is it not true? Yeah, so you heard. That there was some concern, particularly by developing countries, that sometimes for negotiations, better off countries would be taken there or more powerful countries, and agreement will be reached and then it will be imposed on everybody. And that was the issue of the green room and transparency. So I haven't used it yet, but I intend to. But it will be done in a manner that is transparent, open, and brings people, everybody will know what everybody is doing. Because that's my style. I think people who know me from being minister know that. So we will use it, and it will be one where the developing countries will not feel left out. But sometimes you need it to bring a small group of countries together to discuss without speeches. At the WTO, a lot of speeches are read, and I'm saying let's put the speeches aside and talk to each other, not past each other. And then the China, well, then a number of issues. You know, the US-China issue, we're hoping that they'll come more to the WTO, where some of these disputes can be settled or, you know, the issues can be negotiated. They should use the WTO. Some of their issues are bilateral. So we don't enter into their bilateral issues, but there are some that can be solved using the WTO. I mean, members have questions about industrial subsidies that they feel that China gives to state-owned enterprises. And then that gives them a competitive advantage. And they want to engage China on that. China itself has issues with agricultural subsidies given by other members and also wants to see that dealt with. So each side is bringing issues. And I think what we need to do is first do good analysis behind those questions that they are raising and good groundwork, and then try to bring all the members together. You know, members have to discuss with each other and come to an accommodation. And the WTO DG and the Secretariat will support that. Finally, on the anti-dumping and trade remedies, what I was trying to say is some of the measures we take in the country to make sure our industries are not facing unfair competition. Because there are cases where we've seen the issue of rules of origin, where products come from other countries manufactured to some neighboring countries, they are quickly repackaged, and then it's said to be produced in that country, but they are really not. And they're allowed to come in at ECOWAS, no tariffs. So those trying to manufacture similar products here feel they cannot compete, isn't it? Because it's not really manufactured in that country. It's been manufactured elsewhere and brought in. That's why we have to look at the issue of rules of origin. And I've offered that the WTO can come and do some capacity building in that area for us to be able to do that. But so what I was saying is, rather than maybe banning products and so on, there are other trade remedies. We have something called anti-dumping and countervailing measures, duties, that a country can impose when they feel that dumping is being practiced or they feel that rules of origin are being disobeyed. So we can impose those duties. We can even bring the case to the WTO and say, look, this is what is happening. So rather than using some other instruments that may be against some of the agreements we've signed, we can use the existing trade remedies as tools to control this. Now, those trade remedies I discussed with PAMSEC and Minister of Trade and Industry. They were thinking of setting up a trade remedies office or authority to better study this issue and see how it can be used. And I strongly encourage that. And if a request is put, the WTO will be happy to support Nigeria to develop the use of the tools of trade remedies to solve some of the problems. Thank you. So can I say, indulge me for one thing? So since I have the podium, some papers have been reporting that my father died yesterday. I just want to, he died a year and a half ago. And I think it is totally not acceptable that something that happened a year and a half ago, our newspapers since 2 days have been publishing some of them. I know them, but I'm not going to say their names, that he died yesterday. So we have been inundated in my family with expressions of condolences, even from abroad. And I think it's not fair. You know, Nigerian press, those of you who are reporting this, you must be more responsible, please. On the eve of my mother's 91st birthday, they reported my father died. Do you see who died a year and a half ago? So everybody knows that. Yeah. We had it in the papers. We had a funeral. So why would these two newspapers that did this dredge it up? So that is not acceptable. And I just wanted to ask your indulgence. All those who are reporting this, please remove it. My father died a year and a half ago. I miss him, but we don't want to distress the family. All my children are getting calls from everywhere, and my siblings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.